All right, so I think we have folks join, and I think people will be joining in a few. Hi, everyone. If you join, do you mind just sending a quick note in the chat just to make sure it's working properly? Where are you calling from? Maybe a couple of words about your business. If you're followers of the Vendor Table podcast, I think it'll be very cool for Mike and Lauren also see their audience here as well. We're gonna kickstart our webinar. As a quick introduction, I'm Alex, founder and CEO of Maroo. Maroo is a payments platform for wedding and events industry in the US. We offer most convenient way to accept payments and make payments to your freelancers and contractors. And as I know, Mike loves this feature a lot. We'll help you to do it all compliantly, prepare tax forms, and sync with your accounting systems. Recently, we launched a couple of cool features around electronic contract signature and custom branding. So now invoices look really beautiful. And today, I'm super excited, to be joined by Lauren and Mike, both, fantastic photographers. But I first got to know them, I think, during the Christmas break this year, because I was just listening or looking for some really cool podcasts in the industry. So podcast hosts of the Vendor Table. And guys, I think it'll be really good to kickstart with a quick introduction about yourself. How did you get into the profession? And then we can just get to the, main content.
Mike, you want to start?
Ladies first. You go first.
Oh, well, then you really should go first.
You're so funny.
I know. So I'm Lauren O'Brien. I have been a full-time wedding photographer for the last 8 years. I got my start from I went to school for photography, which was a huge mistake. But that's how I got into it. And when I had left college, because I didn't graduate, I moved down to Florida and I bartended and worked a job I hated for 5 years. And then when I moved back to New York, I was like, this is the time that I'm going to devote to doing what I want to do. And I shot for studios for a few years before I went out on my own and figured out that I could do this on my own. And it's been history ever since, in the briefest of ways.
Nice.
Mike, for you.
Very good and brief. I like that. Hey, guys. So I'm Mike Cassara. Guys didn't know that you're joining the Vendor Table webinar with Maroo, so I'm assuming you know who we are. But at the same point, I'm Mike. So been doing wedding photography for 12 years, went full-time in 2019. I had a different route that I went from Lauren. Like Lauren, did the transition quicker than me and everything like that. But so I went to school to be a filmmaker. I actually went to Hofstra University to be a filmmaker. Fell in love with the still side after I graduated college. Got into wedding photography as a side hustle. I was working as a marketing communications manager for a company called Tiffin, which if you guys are photographers, you might be familiar with Tiffin filters. So I actually was the marketing manager for them. I helped grow their social media to what it is today, with 150,000 followers, all that stuff. I did all their content for them for around 8 or 9 years. But during that time, I was doing wedding photography as a side hustle. I kind of fell into it. I just used to love taking portraits of my friends, family members, things like that. And then somehow started shooting a wedding. I don't know when that happened. I do know when that happened. It was like 2011. I started second shooting, did around 50 weddings as a second, and then got my first main wedding photography gig in 2012, and have photographed 300 plus in that time. I do 35 a year. Based out of Long Island. I do travel all over the country to shoot weddings. I've shot weddings in California, Minnesota, up and down the East Coast. Doing a wedding in Ireland this year. Yes, I'm doing a wedding in Ireland this year. I have to brag about that.
Loves to tell everybody this.
I'm telling everybody this. It's in a few months. I'm very excited to shoot a wedding in a different country. And yeah, that's like my kind of short little story. And we started the Vendor Table in 2023, in March of 2023. At a vendor table, we had a discussion a few months prior to that saying, let's do a podcast. We have good conversations. Let's do this thing. And
Nice.
that was pretty much how it started.
That was our first, like, we never hung out. Mike just asked me to shoot a wedding for him, like, as a second. We both admired each other's work for quite some time, and he was like, "Hey, you want a second shoot for me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Um, and at the time, I was also really excited about it because as a longtime admirer of Mike's work, I was like, "Well, this is so great." Then I met him, and obviously things changed, but um,
Yeah.
then we I talked about how I've always wanted to start a podcast. Didn't really know exactly what I wanted to talk about, but at the table we were talking about all of these different things, as you do at a vendor table with, well, whoever you happen to be sitting with. You always talk about vendor related stuff.
Yeah.
And we started making a list of things, and by the end of that 15-minute dinner, we had come up with over 30 topics to discuss, and we were like, we should really do this.
Nice.
And we did.
Yeah. And
That's amazing.
we wanted to do it the right way too. Like we said, like a podcast today isn't just audio. It is video.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have probably found us from our clips on social media, from Instagram and TikTok and things like that. But with our long form podcasts, podcasts are very hard to grow. They're not easy to grow. So you have to use social media to enhance that growth. And that's what we did. Was we said we're going to do this right. So we talked to our friend Matt from Loom Media, who's our director / producer. He's the one who does everything for us. He shoots the content for us. He cuts the videos. He does the reels and all that stuff. Sends it over to us, and then we put it together, and like we do all that proof and stuff like that. So, but he's like the man behind the curtain kind of thing that does a lot for us. We wanted to do it right, so we do pay a studio fee. We do like record with him, all that stuff, and we said we'll invest a little bit of money into this to see how it goes, make it a fun little side project that like we'll shut it off after a few episodes, like maybe revisit it in the off season, make it like an off season podcast. And then I don't know what happened, man, but like more and more people just were like, like, yeah, you guys are like, this is great. You're touching on topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Like, and you're like somebody said to us, like, you're telling all the truths that, vendors wish they could say. And that was the goal, was to like kind of peel back the curtain on the industry and show like, there is a different side to it than, the love and light that everybody sees. And that's what we try to do here.
And to your previous point, through those small, video captures, that's exactly how I found you guys, because I think the image and the video actually translates the emotion and not just like the sound. So that's how I got to know you guys. And what really kind of I liked especially is that kind of no filter, no BS approach, just setting things as is, because I think that was very refreshing. And
not
just
a lot,
out of
not a lot of people like us for that, but we also have our haters. So
a lot of people do not like us.
Well, it means you're doing something right. That's how I think about it.
And just we're okay with that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. And just between your main job and the podcast, like, what's the kind of percentage split of your time?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question.
Honestly, I think, well, Mike definitely puts a lot more into the podcast than I do. I got to give him credit where it's due, because like there are some times where I know that he's staying up until like 2 or 3 in the morning cutting reels and clips. And I'm just like, what can I do? And he's like, please stay out of it. You're going to ruin everything. And because I ask too many questions, because I don't know the answers, but he does. So
at least, like, yeah,
I don't know really what I bring to the table, but it's not all the good stuff. It's Mike.
She brings her charm and humor to everything.
I guess it's just my shining personality.
Most of the time we try to like divvy up kind of responsibilities and stuff like that. Like I do a lot of the back end stuff, so like a lot of the creative side in terms of like like cutting the reels, doing the captions, like creating, like if you've seen like a cut with like where we put a movie scene in, that's like stuff that I do. Like all the memes, I do that stuff. The you know, like we discuss like when we're gonna post things in terms of like we have a strategy behind things. Like we can't just post like 3 reels in a row of us like hating on something, then we just look like haters. So we break things
Yeah.
up. So we have to like, you know, we choose our clips like accordingly, and like that's something we discuss. All the topics that we do is equal discussion. Like we have like an hour phone call like every couple of weeks that where we'll talk about new topics, industry related topics, like see what's, you know, like if there's something, a story that broke in the industry where like we have to talk about this, like we have to talk about like AI, we have to, you know, so we do all that stuff equally. Like I do more the back end marketing side, like well, like I'll do all the analytics, like you know the right like ones. I'm a nerd with this shit, so I'm like trying to like, okay, what's a good time to post with the algorithm? Okay, when can we target? Like, what's a good keyword to use? Like, what's a good trigger word? Like, if you guys notice, we always title a clip with a text banner, and we do that because like the first
For
5 seconds,
baiting.
yeah, it's a bait, it's 100% a bait, but the first 5 seconds of a clip is the most important 5 seconds of a clip going viral. So if you don't have a good trigger to key them in, you use text bait to kind of keep them there for beyond those 5 seconds. So those are stuff that like I do that. Lauren does a lot of the back end, like in terms of like the DMs, like the social, like answering comments, things like
The
that. Like
social aspect of it,
yeah,
and like the
she's the social
moderating the
side.
Facebook group.
Okay.
I run the thread side. Like I do a lot of the threading, which is threads is just fun. It's like it's
Mike
troll city.
also
I like
Mike
to
also
troll
handles
people a
the
little bit.
TikTok
Yeah,
because I won't touch it.
yeah.
I hate
TikTok's all
TikTok.
me.
I hate
I
it.
hate
I don't want to
TikTok
be on
too.
it.
I hate TikTok
People
too.
are mean.
Hmm.
As bad as Instagram can sometimes get, TikTok is 10,000 times worse, and I'm protecting my peace. I keep
Yeah,
saying it over and over again.
yeah,
The bigger we get, the more hate we receive on a regular basis, and I just don't want to look at
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Sounds
We
good.
we we try to like so like to kind of getting back to your question, oh Alex, like is like how much time do we split between our businesses? Like I do spend probably I think around 20 hours a week on the podcast, like working on the podcast and stuff like that, and probably like this sounds terrible, but it's the truth. I probably spend about 60 hours a week on my business. So I'm
Hmm.
working about 80 hours a week. And you know, people will probably sit there and be like, "You work 80 hours a week? Like, are you kidding me?" Like, this is fun to me, guys. Like, this is I love this. Like, this is like not work to me. Being a wedding photographer is not work to me. Like, yes, like there are days where you're like, "Oh my God, I gotta work today." Like, like anybody else, but I love what I do. So 80 hours a week is nothing. I have a really awesome partner who supports me. I work really my set hours. So like I work a 9 to 3 p.m. during the day. And then I'll work a little bit more at night. Like when everyone goes to bed, I'll work like sometimes 9:30, 10 o'clock to like 1 in the morning. And then just like kind of do it all over again kind of thing.
Nope,
So,
not
so
me.
Okay.
Not I. Nope. So conversely, Mike, for him, his job is not work, or at least he loves it so much that he feels like he can put that extra time into it. Me, work is work, and I'm done at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock rolls around, I'm done. The only thing I'm going to handle is emails because I have designated time for work, for editing, all of that stuff, and that keeps me on track.
Yeah.
After 3 o'clock, then I focus on the podcast. And that also allows me to pay more attention to my son. So I'm not like on my phone all day long or on my computer all day long because I also am the parent that's home the most.
Right.
So I can't, for me anyway, I want to be able to spend time with my son during his like childhood years because I made these mistakes when he was littler where I spent too much time on working and I missed out on so many things. So I'm not sacrificing that time anymore.
Yeah.
I've even told him, I've sat down and told him before, turn the phone off, put your phone
yeah.
down. The podcast can wait.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad with stuff sometimes. Like I try to turn the phone off when my kids are home, but sometimes like, I'll find
You
myself like
slip.
still look, yeah, you slip, you
Yeah.
like look at it. But I've been trying to really be conscious of like not looking at things when my family's home.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to do. Like, like we work in a business that is self-serving. We work in a business that is pretty much like, our face, our names and stuff like that. And I'm not even just talking about the podcast. I'm talking about like, our photography businesses, like, we're the face, where we do all the work of our businesses. So, it's sometimes hard to turn it off. And
Right.
like, but the best way to do it is like what Lauren said, you set work hours. And that's what I like, even though I work like crazy, I do really work between those work hours, like 9 to 3, and then like, 9:30, 10 o'clock to 1 a.m. Those are my work hours. And
Hmm.
like, people are
He's a
like, do you
night
have,
owl. He can do that
yeah.
shit. I'm
I
11
I'm a
o'clock rolls
nerd. I was
around.
a
I'm a
game. I was a
corpse.
gamer. I was a gamer my whole life. Like,
I
are
am
you
a
kidding me?
corpse
1
at
a.m. is like
11 o'clock.
early. Yeah, I can run on 4 hours of sleep. I'm good. I don't. I don't
No,
know. I don't know if it's gonna catch up to me one day. It probably will, but I'm pretty damn good. I
I'm a
feel like
sleepy girl for life.
if I get 6 hours, I'm like I'm cooking.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like 8 hours, I feel like I got too much rest. I'm like
I'm in
eight
your
hours
camp,
is.
I
Mike,
woke
on
up.
this. Yeah.
I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning. My husband was like, "What are you doing awake?" He was so freaked out. He was like, "I can't believe you're awake right now. This is so weird because I usually don't get out of bed until like 8. And do not disturb. If you do,
Yeah.
it's going to be bad."
Yeah. And I
I don't
think,
remember the
I'm
last time I slept
evil.
till 8.
yeah.
No.
I actually think, the fact that you guys have very different schedules and approaches at the same time, both being, full-time into your business, that's actually a really good indication that there is a spectrum when people say,
Mhm.
we're going full-time, committing ourselves to the business. And I guess, if you go back to kind of the topic of the webinar, I'm curious at what point, you made this decision like, okay, this is, I'm committing myself to, my business. This is how I'm structuring it, as you guys described. Like, what was this trigger? At what time you decided, like, did you have, I don't know, like financial safety before that allowed you to transition, or you had a clear vision and plan, or you had a pipeline of clients? Just curious, like, what was this framework of thinking at that time?
Who wants to go
I'll
first?
I'll go first with this one because
Okay.
I think mine's a little bit of more of a corporate route than what Lauren's is going to be. So like, and we know each other's stories, but so I worked for the tipping company for 8 years, like, and um, always kept my photography business as the side hustle. Like I didn't advertise, I didn't market, I hardly did social media, I hardly did any of that stuff. Come 2017, I started to really get into my photography. I think like to the point where I was like, this is fun. I want to get more clients. I want to do this stuff. So I started posting more on Instagram and like consistently, like maybe I don't know, once every 2 days, 3 days, something like that. Like just consistent though, like always consistent. And I saw my business start to grow. I then had kind of a fork in a road moment, I think in 2018 or so, where I had disagreements with management at Tiffin where they wanted to go in one route with marketing and I didn't agree with that. And I knew because, our decisions were so different, I was going to just, basically start to lose interest with the company. And, once you start losing interest in something, that's usually the end there.
Yeah.
So like that's the beginning of the end. So what I saw was like I had the direction to, like I could either go all in on my business, which is, I know it's the title here, but go all in on my business or go all in corporate, right? Okay, like fork in the road moment. I was lined up to be a VP. I could have, had like a really high salary and all that stuff, and I was making great money at Tiffin. But entrepreneurship kept calling me, kept calling me, kept calling me. And then all of a sudden, I had one client write me a review at the end of 2018, 2019 that exploded my business. All it took was one review.
Oh, wow.
She wrote it in a local Facebook group, which we're not very fond of, but she wrote it in a local Facebook group that is like pretty much a toxic wasteland, but in this case, it like actually did catapult my business a little bit. So I'll give them props. I'll give credit where credit's due. But that one review ended up getting me around 50 to 75 leads from that one review within 2 weeks.
Oh,
And
wow.
this was all around the time that like I was having like issues with management and I like disagreements with management and stuff like that. So I was like, I talked to my wife and I said, like, hey, I'm getting a lot of inquiries here. Like, if I start picking this up, would you, like, what do you think? Like, so being like, I'm pretty organized. I laid out a whole spreadsheet of how much, I would need to, sustain income for the next 2 years. How many weddings I would need to do, how many like I would need to pick up, like how I would need to break down pricing, all that stuff, and how much we're going to get taxed, and then transition out of a 9 to 5 into a full-time job. So I laid the groundwork for it by being analytical. Like I looked at spreadsheets, I looked at all this stuff. Me and my wife sat down, we talked about it. And once I started getting those leads, it was just like a no-brainer. From those like 75, I think I booked 30 weddings in a matter of like 2.5 weeks. Just hustling. So I booked a ton of weddings from that one review, and it catapulted my business for the next 2 years. Now people are like, oh, well, that was 2019. What happened in 2020? Right?
Yeah.
It was COVID, right? So if I so two things here, right? Like if I didn't go full time as a wedding photographer before 2020, I would have been out of work because Tiffin laid off 90% of their staff. They furloughed a lot of people. A lot of the upper management and middle management got cut. So I would have been out of work if I didn't have photography. Being an entrepreneur kind of catapulted me in many regards because people were still paying those middle payments that sustained me through the pandemic. Yes, people moved their shoots, their wedding days and all that stuff, but because I had payment plans and structure in place, I was able to sustain that. So I did a lot of research before I went full time. I made sure it was good for me, my family. You have to have like your partner's trust in that. Like that's very important. And then like financial backing is very important if you want to transition to full time. It really is. Don't just take the plunge like just because you're a good photographer. Like actually lay it out and make sure you could do this. If you're this is from the perspective of going from a full-time job to an entrepreneurship. So that's my perspective. If you're doing that now, if you're out of college and you're young and like this is something you want to get into as your first job, second job, something like that, different story. And I'm going to kind of let Lauren's perspective is a lot different than mine. So like I wanted to give the perspective from a full-time 9 to 5, like full-time 9 to 5 to solo entrepreneur. I think Lauren has a different perspective than me though.
Yeah. So I never worked a corporate job in my life. I always was wait staff, server, or in some form of hospitality. So when I moved back here from Florida, I had a friend who worked at a studio and I hooked up there and I was working there for quite some time. But you're technically like at one point for a couple of years, I actually worked in the studio doing sales, album design and things like that. So observing how they did business from the insider perspective helped me in my personal career, how to organize timelines and what does and doesn't work and all of those things, how to handle issues and problems, all of that stuff from the internal side really helped me. But I did, after I had my son, I left the office because it was just too much to work from 12 to 9 in the office Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday and then shoot events on the weekends. And when I was working there, I was shooting 80 plus weddings a year myself.
Yeah. That should be exhausting.
80 weddings.
80 to 100. There were years where it was more than 80 and it was horrific. Do not recommend. Unless you have associates that work under you. But I left working in the office and focused more on being with my son. I did some work from home where I could for them, but then I just couldn't do it anymore. When COVID happened, like so many others, I was out of work. My husband lost his job, and it was either figure something out or live in poverty. Like there really wasn't any other choice. So one of us had the option of still working, and that was me. So people were still doing shoots. Maybe they weren't getting married in a conventional sense, but they still wanted memories with their families, and you could safely do that from a distance. So I launched my business. And for a while, I didn't have an LLC or anything like that. So I'm not going to bullshit you here and say that I did the right thing, because I didn't. I wanted to gauge interest. I didn't. Like I said, we're real as fuck here. So I'm being honest. I didn't do it right when I first started. I wanted to know that people were going to want me before I invested my money in it, which may not be the proper legal way, but I needed to know if I was going to dive in, I needed to see what the interest was going to be. And thankfully it was there. So the second I started realizing, okay, people are going to pay me for this, then I got registered. I registered my business. I did all of the back end stuff. I got a contract and did all of those things, made sure that it was a legal business. At first, I operated as a sole proprietor, and then I became a corporation. But I transitioned. So I didn't just go into it head first. I had side jobs. So I worked as a boudoir photographer under a boudoir studio. I was still shooting for the wedding studio, once everything opened back up. And then once the world went back into full swing, I was very overwhelmed with stuff for myself, with the studio, the boudoir studio. I was doing 3 full-time jobs, and I had no time. So then there I was working 80 plus hours a week and never seeing my family or having any time. What good is the money if you don't have any time to enjoy it? Yeah. And even then, the money that I was making from both studios didn't come anywhere close to what I was doing on my own. So Mike will tell you, I called him like multiple times in tears, talking about how I was miserable and I was scared to lose the stable income that I was getting with either of those two. And he was like, you don't have to do this anymore. You're good. You can make it on your own. And sometimes that's what it takes, to hear from somebody else who did it before you that you can do it. And that's what I did. That day, I quit both of my jobs.
Yeah. And can we actually talk on this topic? Because, your stories really resonate with me. I think I'm kind of more similar to Mike, because I also quit corporate job before kind of starting Maroo. How do you handle those ups and downs of running your own business? Like what support, you use, or how do you recover from those, downsides?
Well, therapy is very important.
Therapy.
In all seriousness, like every business has ups and downs, like we all do. Like I've had peaks and valleys. Like this year is considered the wedding gap year, which is inquiries are lighter across the board. I think most wedding professionals will say that, and if they're not, I think they're incredibly fortunate, like that they're still in very, very high COVID demand. Like 2020, 2021, 2022 were booms of the industry, where we were seeing like record numbers of inquiries. And then, now 2024, it's kind of slowing down a little bit, and people are kind of getting married close to their date. They're making decisions later. So, there
I just got an inquiry for July 6th of this year. July 6th.
July 6th of this year. So
came in yesterday.
So like people, so there's highs and lows to every business. So like, I think, our mental health is the number one thing to kind of keep our mental health in check, because as a business owner, you could really get down on yourself quickly.
It's very easy to spiral.
Yeah, and you could spiral. And, if you have a consistent game plan that's working for you, keep it going. But, one of the things I think we preached on another podcast was, was adapt and evolve, because as a business owner, you have to adapt and evolve because of the fact that, if things aren't working, you have to change it. So you have to have an evolution of your business. Like I've been around now since like 2012. We've watched the dawn of Instagram, and watch it become like what it is today. And I get 90% of my leads from Instagram. I know Lauren does as well. We get the majority of our leads through Instagram, but Instagram's ever changing. Like we're dealing with the algorithm being like just ridiculous. We're dealing with like, engagement in the tanks, like at times, so how do you evolve it? Well, you have to keep up with the trends. You have to, keep your business, like always evolve like your business, and figure out new ways to market yourself as a solo entrepreneur. If you're not doing that, it's really going to be hard to keep things consistent. So, but like, we touched on it briefly, but like, when I do get down on myself, I do seek therapy. I have a therapist that like actually like chats with me. She's actually a big reason that I went full time. Like, I was like doubting that I could go full time, and I didn't really have like a support person to really like I have my wife, but like like your spouse, you can only lean on so much. You need somebody to kind of like relate to you a little bit, and like therapists can relate to you. So like we're not sponsored by a therapy company or anything like that, but like I highly encourage an entrepreneur, like if you're an entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur, and you're doubting yourself at any point, like get a therapist to really give you a little kick in the ass. It's really
Doubting yourself, whether you're overwhelmed or you're stressed, and my husband and I we've had this discussion, and one of the things was, the second you start to take work home and take it out on your family is the second you need to step back and either leave the job or reevaluate and assess what you want out of it. And we've had to do that twice, with one of his jobs, mine. And when we do that, like we reevaluate what is important to us, like what are we investing our energy in, and is it worth it? So like what Mike said, you have to adapt and evolve with your business, and there's going to be pitfalls. Like there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys being a business owner, as many of you well know. So it's just how you figure out how to navigate them in a healthy way.
And speaking of, not kind of getting into the burn down, or burning down as a entrepreneur, there are a lot of tools that are being built around us that help you run and organize your business. I was just curious, if you can share with the audience, like what do you guys use to organize yourself? Like, make sure that everything runs smoothly. Maybe you can share the evolution, how, Lauren, as you said, like in the beginning it was nothing, but then you evolve and you improved and you added like most probably some of the solutions that you're using.
We use a lot of the same tools, a lot of them.
We do now.
Yeah, because I convinced you to. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm always the one that's just like, Lauren, like you have like, what are you doing? And she's just, she's like archaic with like, like she's very conservative in the fact that she's like, I know what works. This is what works.
That is not true.
Oh,
that
yeah.
is not true, sir.
That is very true. Yeah.
Not true.
Yeah,
don't you
but
dare.
You do listen to me when I do tell. Okay, like for example,
you're being fresh. You're being fresh.
I'm very fresh right now because I told her for a long time to get HoneyBook. HoneyBook is a game changer.
Okay, that was
for us.
one instance.
Oh, I told you for like 3 months, 4 months. She's like, oh, like I have everything on spreadsheets. This is it's like it's easy. I can manage it, paper invoicing and all this stuff.
Okay, so listen. So for everyone who just witnessed our little cat fight, that happens all the time. What I was doing was the same thing that the studio was doing internally, because it's all I knew. So that's how I started, was using spreadsheets and creating documents. And I had like a free app. I think it was Unscripted. So I had the Unscripted app, which I still have and use every now and again for like inspiration, but it had like contracts built in. It had like client management built in to a certain degree, but it was it's not what it is now. I think they've changed and evolved a little bit. But it was not easy. It wasn't seamless. It didn't keep track of my payments, so I had to use different payment platforms and things like that to get everything out. And it just wasn't like the most organized way to do things. Mike told me to use HoneyBook. Actually, probably 300 people told me to use HoneyBook. HoneyBook is expensive annually. And when I first launched my business, the idea of spending any money scared the crap out of me. So I was like, I'm just going to keep doing it this way and make things more complicated for myself for as long as humanly possible until I feel like $400 a year is an acceptable amount to spend. $400 a year is a drop in the bucket when it comes to running your business. HoneyBook is probably mine and Mike's favorite tool to use to managing the back end of our business. It's life. HoneyBook is life.
It's a complete client management like just solution. It really is, because it has initial inquiry comes in, you have the contact form. So it puts it right into the system. When somebody inquires, it gives you all their information and basically just keeps things really nice and organized. It puts you into a pipeline. It makes things super easy. It's where you could send proposals, contracts, invoices, all that stuff you could do through HoneyBook as well. So that has sped us up tremendously. Is client management solutions, okay?
Yeah,
It always speeds us up. So that's
I mean,
number
and there's
one.
so many. You know,
Yeah,
there's HoneyBook, there's Dubsado, there's 17
lot.
Hats, like a lot of people like, but they all have pretty much the
unscripted
same features.
Yeah, unscripted sped their things up a lot. I know they have so that's more for like client management solutions where you're dealing with your client. Like it keeps everything's nice and neat, right? So that's number one. Like I have subscriptions to so many different services and stuff like that where, it does help with client management. But the one thing we talk, like we didn't touch on with HoneyBook, is the fact that it automates things for you. So it now makes things one click. So you could draft an email template and like insert the people's names and just it will automatically make that so much easier for you to just send like am I available, am I unavailable, one click, I'm available, sends a whole breakdown. It sends your like what you offer and all that stuff, and then they could set a meeting with you. It has a calendar, it has all that stuff built in. So for that I use I'm using HoneyBook. Now other platforms take advantage of, like before we like when you approached us, Alex, I was sending invoices and having to deal with a lot of different things. And we talk about on the podcast, waiving credit card convenience fees and stuff like that, and processing fees and having to deal with all that stuff. Well, so when Alex approached us, I'm like, yes, we're on a Maroo webinar and everything like that. So I am going to talk about my great experiences using the program, but Maroo really sped me up with two things. One, paying contractors. Okay. So I have every wedding I shoot has a second shooter. Every single wedding I have a second shooter. So I'm paying a second shooter, like a payment every single wedding. Because I do that, you could send bank transfers, you could do this, you could do that, like you could use Zelle, you could use Venmo. It's just it ended up being a nightmare for me to having to pay contractors. Well, when Alex approached us and we started using the platform and really diving into it, I noticed that the pay contractor feature, or pay somebody feature, is built into Maroo. So now for paying contractors, it's super easy. It just sends a payment right to their bank account. I get a confirmation that they accept it, and it keeps things nice and neat and organized for me. That at the end of the year, I could just, say, this is how much I paid out to contractors. I send it off to my accountant. Great. Okay. So that's I'm using it for that. I'm also using Maroo to take payments for sessions a lot. So if I do a branding shoot or a smaller shoot and things like that, I could just send an invoice right through Maroo. Boom. Makes things super easy. Especially if you don't want to have to put people into a contract or anything like that. I use Maroo as my one-off to send a lot of invoices that way. Because I do a lot of people don't know this because I don't advertise it, but I do a lot of branding inquiries. I have a lot of branding sessions. I do a lot of corporate sessions and things like that. And for my corporate clients, I keep everything through Maroo, especially to send invoices and stuff like that, because it's just the platform's super easy to use. Like, I know you're on
Nice.
a Maroo webinar, so like, just I'm
That's
gonna talk highly about it.
well, and just in the
Aside
full.
from that, yeah.
We don't
Oh,
use
sorry.
program. We wouldn't, guys, and I'll be honest with you, everybody that's following along here, we wouldn't accept a sponsorship from anybody if we didn't use the program or we didn't use
Yeah.
anything. So
We have denied people.
we've had a lot of people come out and want to sponsor the podcast, and we just had no interest because we don't use their program. When Alex reached out for Maroo, we like really thoroughly did research, and we're like, this is something we would use.
It's
So
valuable.
very
Thanks.
valuable.
On top of that, I mean, a couple of things that Mike and I really use that have like sped up our workflow and helped us a lot are Imagen. Immediately Imagen has like saved us a lot of time
Told
with our
Lauren to use
editing
that
process.
one too. That's another one I got her into. Just saying.
You're not the first person to recommend Imagen to me.
I think I might have
Credit
been.
to Jenna.
Okay, whatever.
And also I used this was before Imagen launched their culling. I also use Narrative Select for culling. So I've been a member I've subscribed to Narrative for I don't know 3 years now, 4 years. It's been a while. But that has really simplified my culling process because that to me was the longest part of editing a wedding was culling. And this has dramatically reduced the amount of time that I spent culling images. So Narrative Select for me, I know there's a few others like Photo Mechanic or Aftershoot that do very similar things. Imagen also launched their culling AI. I haven't played around with it yet, but because I already have one, but so there's a lot of different tools that help streamline the process and make it a lot quicker for us.
Imagen's a big one for us, because of the fact that like doing 35 weddings a year, like a wedding, I think last year was taking me around 12 hours from start to finish of editing. Like that is really like the gist of things, and that's like being like fair on it. Like I would probably spend about 12 to 14 hours editing a wedding from start to finish. With Imagen, I don't use an AI color. I actually like to cull myself. It's very easy for me. It's honestly therapeutic. At times I put on a movie, a show, and I'm just like culling. It takes me about, I don't know, they cull like 5,000 images. It takes me myself about 2 hours. So that's 2 hours of time. I'll watch a movie. I'll put on a TV show, whatever. What Imagen does though is it will edit those 1,500 photos that I selected out of those 5,000 in 15 minutes. So therefore cutting my editing time from 12 to 14 hours down to about 3.5 to 4, saving me a tremendous amount of time. Yes, I do go back in, I refine, I check things out, I make sure everything's good, all that stuff. But all in all, like I'm spending around, I want to say $85 to $90 a wedding for Imagen to edit it. Okay, like I pay like 7 cents an image because I use the straighten tool because I hate crooked horizons. I don't care that they're trendy nowadays, but I want straight horizons. So like it's 2 cents extra per image to get the horizon straight. And within 15 minutes, the images are edited and right back into your Lightroom catalog that you could go and proof and go back over. It sped up my delivery time tremendously.
Yeah.
So I went from delivering in 8 to 12 weeks to now 4 to 6 weeks. And my clients love that because contractually they know they're getting their images back in 8 to 12 weeks. They're getting them a month earlier. They're freaking out that they're getting them back so quickly. They're getting teasers back within 3 to 4 days. They're loving that stuff. So it sped up the workflow and makes things a lot easier, especially if you have a lot of projects going on. So I could highly recommend them. So those are like really, I would say the 3 main programs we're using right now to make our businesses like really run smooth and better and easier. HoneyBook, Maroo, Imagen are the big 3.
Nice, guys. And we spoke about how you got into the business and like committed full time. We spoke about key challenges that you experienced during committing yourself to the business, tools that's you're using to help yourself and run the workflow. I'm very interested about kind of growth and your personal growth and development part. So how do you make sure that you stay, relevant to the market, to your clients, to the latest trends? Do you, use any resources? Do you, keep track of some, publications, or what are your tools to kind of continue, grow, and evolve in the industry?
I think you're going to get two very different responses out of me and Mike.
And this is
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, Mike, why don't you go first, and then I'll
Oh,
I'll tell you what my thoughts are.
so mine is all social media. You got to keep up with the kids, got to stay up with the trends. Like, so I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm looking at Reels, I'm looking at TikToks. I'm seeing what people are doing. Like a few years ago, it was different. I was kind of on blogs. Like I was really paying attention to certain like Instagram feeds, personally, like I'm a big fan of like It Looks Like Film, Archipelago, like those like really like Loverly, like those are like big wedding inspo ones that I saw, like, how photographers were doing things, and kind of like following like seeing like what their trends, like if there's any trends to kind of keep an eye out on. Now I feel like everything's social media based, where if you're not up on Reels or TikToks, like you're falling behind. So I try to pay attention to those things, see what's going on in the industry from social mainly. And then
Yeah.
I'll adapt and evolve like my best way. Granted, I've kept my look consistent for about 8 or 9 years now. So I'm only like, I'm not changing my look by any means, but I'm seeing what people are doing that maybe might be something that is like, maybe relevant or maybe cool or maybe inspiring, stuff like that. So I'll pay attention to that just mainly through social media. Like that's really how I try to keep up with it. What about you, Lauren?
So I think definitely a lot of what you said, Mike, does ring true. Like social media is king here. Now it's kind of like if you don't have social media, like you're not going to grow. Now that's kind of it's like a fact. It's like the easiest way for people to see and interact with you online. And I noticed in terms of my own growth, I mean, Mike and I have obviously, our followings have grown significantly since we started the podcast. But my inquiries are also increasing. So that means we're doing something right. So it's not all just photographers and creatives that are following us. It's getting us out there to clients that maybe never would have thought to communicate with me because I don't live in the same state. So those things are happening. But I've noticed in terms of personal growth that my business does better when I'm actively showcasing myself. Whether I'm talking to an audience, I am showing weird parts of my life, my strange home decor, things that are allowing other people to relate to me and attract people like me. So I feel like that's a really important piece of the puzzle. But somebody who has not anywhere near the same interests as me might not be a good fit for me. But seeing little glimpses into my life and how even just like how I decorate my house, like strange things like that you wouldn't think would be important and probably aren't, but it's allowing them to connect with me on a level that maybe I wouldn't have tried before. The other thing,
yeah, and it just also helps to connect with with your people, basically, because when I'm looking for candidates, for example, to Maroo to join the company, the first interview is the cultural match, because before we start even talking about any details, it's just so important to make sure we kind of like on the same wave. And you're absolutely right that the easiest way to do that is just to showcase yourself.
Another thing I noticed, and this is just in my case, I can't really speak for everybody, but what I have noticed is that the more I'm on social media and looking at other people's work, the more harm it does to me. So, I had a whole conversation with multiple other photographers who are very close to me, where I was spending so much time editing one session over and over and over again. I re-edited a whole session 4 separate times because I could not settle on an editing style, which is crazy because I have my editing style. It's been the same way for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And yet, comparing yourself to other photographers constantly who are talented and incredible professionals who create such good work that is different than mine will start to make the wheels turn in ways that just aren't benefiting you. Um, and I have to not look at other people's work in order to do better for myself, my own personal growth, my business. Like I have to focus on what makes me money, and that's my style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of my favorite question is, what's next for you guys? What are your future plans for both business and podcasts? Where do you expect 2024, 2025 to land?
Damn.
Gosh, I don't know after this year.
Yeah. That's a tough question. Lauren, go. You could tell yours first.
In terms of my business, obviously I'd like to expand a little bit more. I'm, possibly one of those things where I'm considering over the next, but then my 5-year plan, right? In 5 years, I don't know if I want to be doing this anymore. I just, it's one of those things where they're long days, and Mike and I are getting older and our clients are staying the same. So, we're just kind of like, I'm gauging my body and my mental health and seeing how far I'm going to take this before we start moving in another direction, and seeing what the next opportunity is for us. If it is, if it's still shooting at 45, it's still shooting at 45, but maybe, we step into the field of education, or at least just me. Maybe I do like go and do mentorships and things like that. But as of right now, it's just, there's so many options and not enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about
We don't
you,
have
Mike?
a lot of time.
Yeah. There, for me, it's so I scaled my business a little bit. Last year I had associates shoot for me, which went really well. I don't know if I will maintain associates, because with associates comes more work, comes more editing, comes more, back end management. So last year I did it as a favor to my second shooter, Meredith, who's been with me for a long time. And, she's wanting to go full time. So, I wanted to catapult her business a little bit and get her main experience, under me, and which she did. So now she's, getting the gears in motion to go full time. I don't know if I take on an associate unless I trusted them so much with my life. Like I trusted her with my life. So like, I knew she was reliable. But at the same point, scaling the business, like for me, my goal is to scale it back while also increasing profit. So I want to take on less weddings. Like I do 35. I'd like to do 25, but still make the same amount of money. So obviously your prices have to increase. The podcast is going really well to the point where we're expanding it, and we're growing it substantially. Like in the last 6 months, we've seen, I think we gained around 30 to 40,000 followers on there, and watched it explode in growth to the point where people are asking us for merchandise and more content and like, exclusive guests and things like that, where we're like, what is happening? So we do have some goals in place for the podcast, and get like, I know a lot of people are joining us from the vendor table, like Instagram and everything like that. So we're working on doing more episodes. We're working on the vendor table at home edition, where it will be like a bonus, pretty much bonus content, that like we are going to interview some of the top like people in the industry that can't make it to the studio, and like give like, both content that is free, and then some that will be, like behind a Patreon or something like that, where it'll be exclusive, where maybe we ask like the harder hitting questions and things like that to some of these wedding professionals. So we're working on that. We're working on like growing the podcast in a bunch of different ways, like whether it's with sponsorships or mentorships. Like I do currently
Or this.
mentorships, or doing mentorships and stuff like that is something that I do. I've had a huge boom in mentorships over the last few months, where I think I took on 3 in the last few months, which I normally do 1 a year. But now I have around like 10 potential students, and so I'm working on that. I'm personally not like a big like I don't pretend to be an educator. So I'm just sharing my experience from the perspective of like, this is how I did things. If you want to learn from me, cool. If you don't, like, that's fine. But so I'm kind of on the fence with like the fact that like, do I want to educate? Should I educate? Kind of thing. So
Nice.
we're weighing it, but we're weighing that definitely.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks a lot, Lauren.
I told Mike that the podcast is my retirement plan, so we better not fuck it up.
Yeah, pretty much. Like we're figuring out like if we like, because like a lot of people don't realize this, but it is expensive for us to do this. Like it's not like we're paying our own we don't make a lot of money doing this. We're not making, like we break even with pretty much with paying for this, if we're lucky. Like we've invested a lot of money into the podcast, and we can't keep that going, like, and keep taking a loss year after year. So it's eventually we have to make money on it. Otherwise it has to, hit the shelf. So a lot of people will be like, oh, you're going to paywall it. Like you're going to paywall it.
Yeah.
We won't paywall the main podcast. I will tell you that, like, that will never be paywalled, but like we will probably start selling merch. We will start like, doing exclusive interviews, things like that, where if people really want to see that content, like where we might have to do that for the fact that, to sustain this, so you got to make a little money.
Yeah. And there is a question from Dana. Oh, sorry, guys.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. So Dana is trying to build her portfolio to showcase the couples, and track them. And she's curious, how often and did you photograph for free in the beginning before you committed full time?
No.
Never photograph for free, ever. So unless you're doing a creative project for yourself, like where it's something that inspires you and it's something that you want to do not photograph for anybody for free. If somebody wants to pay, if somebody wants to be like a wedding photographer, don't have like, and they want you to shoot their wedding, you do not do that for free. Number one. Okay.
No.
Number two, you want to build if you want to build a wedding portfolio, this is weddings. Okay. She doesn't say if she wants to do weddings. But if this is a wedding, like you want to do weddings, second shoot, big factor there.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah. Put yourself out there. Try to second shoot for people. I think it froze for a second. I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know why my screen froze. I have like a thumbs up.
Even if, offer to second shoot for somebody. But like you don't have to do anything for free. I think that's like one of the biggest lies you've been told in this industry is that you need to work for free. You don't. Your time is valuable and your talent is non-negotiable. If you don't feel confident in your abilities and that's why you think that you shouldn't be paid, that's your mindset. You can always do practice sessions with family members to like get the technical aspect of these things, but you don't ever have to work for free to get better. You can run model calls. That's what a lot of people will do. They'll run a model call with a promotion for a free session fee, but they pay per image for the images that they love. Maybe they get 2 free images and then they can pay per image for any additional that they want to buy from the session. These are things that you can do where it gives them a deal, but you're still earning income.
Yeah.
Never shoot for free.
Yeah, never shoot for free.
Great ending to this call because we're right on top of the hour. Thanks a lot, guys. It was such a pleasure. I mean, for me, the hour just, went so fast.
It flew.
It just completely flew. Thanks a lot for everyone who joined the call. If you guys have any questions, please shoot it to hello@maroo.us. We will share it with Mike and Lauren and share the answers with you. In terms of recording, we absolutely record every webinar and we're going to share it on our page and and with everyone who joined the call as well. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.